Hello, USC Trojans. My name is Lori Shreve Blake, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to our homecoming webinar, our first ever virtual homecoming webinar entitled Strategies for Managing Your Career Post-COVID-19. And I have with me today Esther Lanier, who's our Senior Career Counselor, and she will be fielding all the questions. So if you have questions, put them in the Q&A, and then she will moderate those out the last 15 minutes of our session today. And also this webinar is being recorded, so it will be available tomorrow, beginning Saturday, the 7th of November, for all of our alumni to watch and hear this amazing information that we have for you today. So again, I'm Lori Shreve Blake. I'm the Senior Director for Alumni and Student Career Services at the USC Career Center. This webinar is being put on by our Career Center and the USC Alumni Association. And it's my pleasure to welcome our two esteemed alumni, Ian Davidson, who is Vice President, Business Development at ZipRecruiter, and Erin McCall, Senior Talent Advisor, Global Talent Management, Human Resources at Amazon.com. So I asked our panelists to kind of give an overview of their role in their respective organizations, and we'll start with Ian.
Hey everybody, fight on. My name is Ian Davidson, and I work for ZipRecruiter, which is a leading online employment marketplace. We connect job seekers who are looking for work with employers who are very happy to hire them, and I oversee our partnerships division. So we work with all of the technology on the employer side to create a seamless experience. And we work with a wide variety of companies who can help bring our jobs into their websites and their marketplaces to help their users find work. So excited to talk with you all today.
Yes, Erin?
Yes, hi, I'm Erin McCall, and I have my Master of Social Work from USC, and just a little bit of a background. I worked as a clinical social worker at Massachusetts General Hospital in the emergency room, burn unit, ICU, had a business side of me, so moved back to the Bay Area, worked for a couple startups, ended up at Microsoft for 6 years, and now I've been at Amazon for 5 years. So I merged my social work skills from USC that I received with the business side of me, and found myself in human resources, which is a good kind of marrying those two skill sets. So within my time at Amazon, I worked a lot around the performance management of employees and working with managers around that. And most recently, I'm in the Disability and Leave Services organization. And I really focus in on the employee experience, culture, and engagement within the organization.
Great. Thank you, Erin. So our first question, we're just going to go right to it and right out of the blocks. In March, when we all kind of started to work from home and life changed, many people said life will never be the same as we knew it prior. Our question today is, will COVID-19 radically change the job search process? And we'll start with Ian.
I think it's going to change not only the job search process, but just the way companies are run and the way that they think about their relationships with their employees. Overnight, literally, that doesn't happen very often in history, but quite literally overnight, companies had to send their workforce home. They had to learn how to empower them. They had to learn to do collaborative work. They had to learn to support a distributed workforce. And for the vast majority of office jobs in particular, that was a pretty radical change. So I think you're going to see long-term side effects. And I think the side effects that are happening right now are not always fully appreciated. I think the biggest challenge that's going on with remote work right now is actually a childcare challenge, not a workforce efficiency challenge. At ZipRecruiter, our CEO is incredibly pleased with the efficiency that he's seen from his workforce. So as CEOs think long-term, they're seeing these results, they're seeing what's possible, and I think they look at it as a good thing. If you want to find the best talent, restricting yourself to a city is not the way to do that. So once we have a system and a method to efficiently work with a distributed workforce, they're going to start looking at that as an advantage and going out and trying to find the best talent, which is going to be amazing for the average worker because you're going to be able to live in Wyoming if you've always wanted to. At the same time, it's also going to introduce, in the long term, I think this will take, several years to come around, but it's going to bring in more competition. You're no longer competing with a local talent pool for a job. You're competing with a global workforce. I think it's going to have impacts on the educational landscape. There were a lot of college students who didn't go back to college this fall. There are a lot of people who lost work, who had to think about how to build new skills, and that skill building online is really starting to emerge with digital certifications that employers are going to start looking for. Who's upskilling, who has proof that they have the skills that are needed. And the whole interviewing landscape is going to change as well. It's going to be far more interviews via video as a common practice, which is going to lead to more skill certification assessments, more assessments around cultural fit, things that are hard to replicate in person. So I don't think any of that's ever going to change, frankly. While people will go back to work, I think those are lasting impacts.
Wow, that's great. Erin?
Yeah, so I would say, virtual employment is the radical change. Some companies are giving up their office spaces completely and going 100% remote. Others actually are leaving it up to employees if they do want to come back or not. As Ian mentioned, previously you had to be in a region, a headquarter of a company. Amazon was typically Seattle focused. We'd call it the mothership, but now really we are hiring and looking virtually ever since March. The other thing with COVID, just certain industries or companies are doing better than others now. For example, an obvious one is Zoom, but Amazon fulfillment centers, and they're adding additional fulfillment centers around the world. You may want to look at other companies that you never thought of looking at. For instance, cleaning supply companies, liquor companies, entertainment like Amazon Studios and Netflix are doing really well. And then the other part of, why or areas to look at that's radically changed, just looking at like the real estate market, maybe reinventing yourself as a realtor. I'm based out of the New York City office, but I live in the suburbs, and many families, many people just wanted out of the city due to the circumstances. And so the market increased where I live. So I think just opening up a little bit larger in terms of the job search process, what type of companies maybe you wouldn't have looked at previously, can really open up a whole new industry for you.
Yes, and I like that people are not going to have to be where the mothership is, as you put it, Erin, or where the company's headquartered. And Esther and I actually have a PhD alumna who is working for LinkedIn in the Bay Area and finally decided to move to Minnesota, closer to family, and leave because they can work remotely for some time to come. So yeah, that's really going to level the playing field. My next question, and I think it's a good segue, talking about some of the companies that are doing well during COVID, is for Ian, and it's around kind of the trends that you're seeing as it relates to employers who are hiring, and Erin just mentioned a few of them. We know that we have over 10 million Americans who are out of work at this time. What are your economists projecting as it relates to COVID-19 and employment market recovery?
Yeah, I'll share and be totally transparent that not only our economists, but I think the general consensus among economists is nobody knows what's going to happen. And I think that comes from the fact that we were wrong in March in our projections. We expected a drastic decline in employment opportunities as a result of the financial implications of the disruption we've seen in our world. And surprisingly, job volume in our marketplace is pretty close to what it was pre-COVID. Which is, I frankly think, shocking. And it was a very deep and steep drop off with a pretty consistent recovery that's getting us back close to previous levels. On the other side of that, we expected a surge in job seekers, right? When there are massive layoffs, I mean, you look at the perspective of the amount of people who lost their job in a short amount of time, and it's unprecedented. We expected a surge of job seekers coming to ZipRecruiter into other marketplaces looking for work, and we didn't see it. And that's not unique to ZipRecruiter. Our partners at Google are great about sharing insights into what people are looking for online. And there has not been really an increase. I think that's for a few reasons. One, as I mentioned, childcare is a massive factor right now. So a lot of people don't have schools to send their kids to. They don't have, their daycares are closed. So there's a huge portion of the workforce that is currently inactive. A second thing is a lot of people consider the risks of going back to certain jobs too high to go back right now. So some of these macro things that we expected, we're not seeing. Now, as Erin mentioned, some industries are doing much better than others. Retail, tourism, those are all being hit, whereas logistics jobs, transportation jobs, online retail jobs, distributed workforce jobs, those are all on the rise. And I expect we'll see, a long-term shift with some coming back to normal. I will say this, we do expect as soon as the vaccine hit, we expect that job seeker surge. We expect that will actually be the time when competition is at its highest. I think there's a perception right now that competition is much higher than it was, but the reality of the numbers we see don't actually suggest that, which has been interesting to witness.
Okay. Well, Amazon, we know Amazon's doing amazing, Erin. Amazon was recently ranked #2 on the Forbes World's Best Employers, a survey of workers on satisfaction with the employer's response to COVID-19, talent development, gender equity, social responsibility. You came out #2. Amazon announced their third quarter results, creating hundreds of thousands of new jobs around the world. What does professional hiring look like currently at Amazon? And what are the projections post-COVID-19?
Yes, great. So yes, as you mentioned, Amazon does have a kind of great focus on social responsibility. With the Black Lives Matter movement, we really are increasing our focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion within the current workforce and our hiring practices. We're committed to building a sustainable business for our customers and the planet. And we did, co-found the Climate Pledge, which is the commitment to the net zero carbon across our business by 2040. And in turn, this is actually creating numerous jobs, around the world within Amazon. An additional part of kind of our hiring practice is, we constantly are inventing on behalf of our customers. So teams are working on confidential projects that end up creating many jobs within Amazon as well. And the main focus with all jobs, whether it's corporate or in the fulfillment center side of the house at Amazon, at our core is something we call the leadership principles. And for example, we look to see if the employee, can you, invent and simplify? Can you come in and have bias for action? Do you insist on the highest standards, and earn trust? So really, in terms of our, professional hiring and what we're looking for and recruiting are really based around our leadership principles, which you can actually, find them, do some research on them, but that's really at the core of our hiring and who we're looking to see to bring on board to raise the bar at Amazon.
That's great. So if someone wants a job at Amazon, go out and research those leadership principles and see where they align. That's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Ian, so what are the current hottest job markets and sectors in the US? And what are the projections post-COVID-19 as best as you can? I know you said right now economists really kind of don't know, but now that we can live in Wyoming and work for a company in LA or New York, what are those markets?
Yeah, so in terms of the types of industries that are growing, it makes sense, right? Like I used to buy a stick of butter and my milk and bread at the market, and I don't go to the market anymore. So e-commerce is exploding as everyone learns to order things online. I mean, we thought before we had reached market saturation, but we proved that we haven't. Now almost all purchases are being done online, and companies like Amazon continue to lead the way on that front. Remote work software companies, video game companies, grocery stores, pharmacies, warehousing services, those are all industries that are growing. And I expect that some of the industries that are really suffering right now will rebound as soon as people are comfortable leaving their homes. I will give a personal prediction for post-COVID rather than an economist one.
Okay.
My personal prediction is we're going to see another roaring 20s. I think that when people feel safe going back out, they are going to have so much pent up energy for travel and food and dining and entertainment that people are going to go out into the world with a great enthusiasm, and that consumer confidence is going to rise, and that we're going to see just a boom economically. I think that people who are trying to figure out how to benefit from this should really try and thread the needle of finding companies that are in a better position today than they were previously, but who are positioned well when that quote return to normal happens, because those companies are going to do just so very well when that economic reboom happens. My most important advice to job seekers over what things will look like moving forward is that in the last 50 years, there were many jobs that didn't change. In the next 50 years, we are going to see more change than ever imagined. We have no idea what the hottest job of 2030 will be. Right now, there are jobs with big data in the title. That's like the surge of lack of supply. No one knew how to define big data as long as 10 years ago. So what that means as a job seeker is you can no longer graduate from college in your early 20s and plan that skill set will serve you through your career. You're going to need to be constantly updating. And there are amazing companies out there that are taking the type of education you get into college, breaking it down to digestible portions, drastically lowering the cost of attaining that education and making it available online. Go seek out those skills that will help you evolve every 3 to 4 years as the landscape evolves, and you will do quite well. Those job seekers who plan to go back to the jobs that they had if they've been out for an extended amount of time are going to have a harder time than those people who have a plan to evolve with a much faster changing job market.
Mm-hmm. And so what you're really talking about is lifelong learning.
Yep.
And I know even on LinkedIn, now there are badges. So you can take a quick little quiz and then get a badge to show your proficiency in a particular technology. So continuing that. And I am cognizant that we will have alumni on this call or watching our recording afterwards who are maybe unemployed and in between jobs. And how would you advise them? And Erin and Ian, you either one could advise us on this. How would you advise them when they are unemployed? Should they take that volunteer position? What should they do so that their resume looks competitive to that next employer? We know employers will definitely be understanding during this time where people have been laid off based on a pandemic nobody planned for. But what can they do to have a competitive edge, those who are unemployed right now?
Erin, you want to go first?
Sure. So I agree with what you said in terms of, if there's volunteer opportunities, if there's certifications that you can be taking, the continuous learning, even, internships, helping out, maybe in a family company, just to really keep those skills growing and, showing that you're still motivated, you still want to do some work. 100% companies are going to understand this is a very unique time. They're not going to look, upon you that it's a negative that you have a gap on your resume. I don't think they're even going to consider it a gap right now. But definitely just keep motivated, keep learning. And I think that will go a long way. And when you are in an interview, you can speak to that, hey, I was really interested in this area, so I spent some time doing online coursework just to understand what that looked like, to get my skill set up. And it could be a completely unrelated field to what you're in now. And I think that's a positive too. I think employers are going to say, hey, that's really cool. They actually had a side hobby or a side interest, and during this downtime, really were passionate about it and dove right into that.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that companies will be giving grace to job seekers. That's important, because I think even for our class of 2020 and those who'll be graduating, and our alumni, they're concerned, will there be grace with employers during this time when people are unemployed?
I completely co-sign that there will be. I think that employment gaps will not be looked upon with skepticism. It's always important to be able to talk about what you did, and so I agree with everything Erin said. The only thing I would add to it is to just stay engaged. If you work in advertising and marketing, for example, read Digiday, read the trades, follow what's going on in advertising campaigns, keep abreast of new technologies that enter. You can do that with 15 minutes a day, and then come back and talk about it. That's going to show that you're someone that has a genuine interest for your industry. The other thing I would say, if you're in an industry that you're worried about long-term, pick a couple industries that you like to start following, because oftentimes by following and engaging with that content, you'll discover the types of companies that are doing interesting things, which can lead to companies to target with your job search. So I would say staying engaged mentally is both very much continuing that lifelong learning path, but it's also just not completely checking out for 6 months and then coming back later and starting from scratch.
Yes. Okay, so this is for Ian and Erin. With so many jobs currently being performed remotely, what impact do you think this will have post-COVID? How should job seekers incorporate this into their job search strategy? I've heard so many students and alums, and probably Esther has as well in her coaching practice, that have said, I want a remote job. So a lot of people really like working remotely. So how should they position themselves?
Yes. So, I do think this is such the silver lining of COVID, because there were so many companies that were dead set against virtual employees or had very minimal amount. So I think this is where you should be open and asking employers as well who may in fact state that they want somebody in New York, where now it's proven everybody typically can work from anywhere. So, ask the employee, would you be okay with me working, where I'm currently working? I know it says it needs to be in New York City. So just be proactive in terms of that. And I think in terms of being able to speak to that you have been working remotely, if you still, are currently working, what success looked like for you, what you did to make sure you're successful, kind of incorporate that into your job search strategy, that, hey, I've been working remotely this whole time, and I can be successful. So I think really using that to your advantage. And again, this is going to open up many more roles to you as an individual than previously it would have, just because, employers are having to be more broad to get the talent they need and really understand we don't need somebody to relocate. We don't need them to be right here. They actually can, stay remote.
Yes. Ian?
I'm about a year and a half into what's called the human resources technology space. And I've been kind of blown away about how much technology infrastructure guides the way jobs are posted online, the way they're advertised online, the way that they're applied to online. And it's like the old adage about a cruise ship. You're not making, a 90-degree turn in a cruise ship. Things change very slowly. And I think this presents a short to midterm opportunity for job seekers to understand that the online connection that happens around jobs isn't really ready for remote work. Even though we're 9 months into the pandemic, even at ZipRecruiter, we're still figuring out how to support this paradigm shift. So go find those companies that you want to work for, go find the jobs that are open, and go attack them regardless of where you live.
Yes.
Right? Don't take what's in the title online as a location seriously anymore. So that'd be my first thing. I think the second thing is my number one tip to anyone pre-COVID, post-COVID, when you're looking for a job, is to define a few companies that you're really excited about, define the value that you can bring to a company, and don't worry about what's open or not. Don't worry about a specific job. Try and find your way to have a conversation with someone there where you can succinctly say why that company is of interest, where your passion lies, and what you feel you can bring to it. And trust that if there's a job opening that you might not know about that they do, they'll probably connect you. And if you can keep top of mind for them in a couple of months and just stay in touch, you never know when that perfect job will open up for you.
I love that, Ian. That's tapping the hidden job market. That's right? Yeah. I love that. And when I'm talking to alumni, I say, ask yourself 3 focus questions. What type of work do you want? What organizations? And then whom do you know? And I think that's a great segue to my next question, which is, USC, we do networking really well, don't we? The Trojan family and Trojan network is alive and well. And so what advice, how crucial do you think networking is going to play now and post-COVID? And what can job seekers and those who want to take their career to the next level, either during the pandemic or after the pandemic, what kind of networking can be done now and post to position themselves? Because it's not what we know a lot of times, but whom.
Yeah, so I would say, since we no longer have networking social hours or conferences, it is a bit different. Typically, we'd able to organically meet people that way. And even if you had a job, but knew you wanted to go into another job, you could go to these networking events and just organically meet people. So we do, need to get more creative. And it's actually not even creative. It could be just going back to the basics of reaching out, like you said, to the Trojan network, people who you worked with early on in the day, even getting word out to family members who then reach out to their connections, because it is very different. We're all in our houses these days, and there are online networking events as well, but it's a little bit harder, over Zoom. And so I think really going back to the basics for now and really digging into your USC network, family members, friends who you used to work with. And it's always one of those things of getting the word out. Like sometimes you don't want to let people know that you don't have a job, but that's actually the best thing you can do, because then they'll think of you if a role does open up or they have a friend in that industry and can connect you. So definitely be vocal, verbal, just to get the word out. And then, LinkedIn is a great resource, but I must say, recruiters get contacted so frequently that they just don't have the time to really, respond or review. So I wouldn't necessarily spend a lot of time there. But again, just tapping into your existing network, but really go deep, really don't, if somebody doesn't respond who's an alum, maybe see if another alum knows that person, kind of really spend time digging in, so then, the networking can really be robust and really help you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Networking, I think, is the most important thing you can do in life. I think it's the most important thing you will do in your career, and I think it's constant. So I have 3 rules that guide my networking principles that I'd love to share. The first is to cast a wide net. You have, if you're not working right now, you have time on your hands. If you are working right now, you should still always carve time out for networking. And go ahead and just call friends, call classmates, call former coworkers. When I was looking for my next job, I would literally just go through my phone, and one day was the A's, the next day was the B's, because you never know what the connection might be that led to the outcome you were hoping for. I had a friend who recently called me looking for work because he's moving to Dallas. And he just said, I don't know if ZipRecruiter is hiring in Dallas. And in fact, was ZipRecruiter, sure, we're remote. But I think the value I gave him was not telling him anything about jobs at our company. It was, I had a friend who moved to Dallas a year ago and found a job, and you guys both work in operations. Can I connect you with him? And maybe that's the connection that leads to the outcome that he wants. So the first is just cast a wide net. Don't be too specific with it. The second, and by far the most important, is to give value without expecting anything in return. The guy who called me was the first time he had asked me for any help in 10 years. He had been offering his guidance and his mentorship to me for the 10 years prior to that, and he had never, ever asked for anything in return. Have that attitude. How can you help people? Because people who help people are the ones who ultimately are going to get the most help in return. The last thing I would say is don't network with a specific goal in mind. This was a rough summer. I had a lot of Trojans reaching out to me who were, looking for internships, and our internship program, and almost every internship program across the country, was canceled. Don't try and network with someone because you want a job at their company, or that you think they're the hiring manager, or like you said, Erin, that they're the recruiter. Go with them with a broader description of what you're looking to, but also just have a conversation. Things will come out of that. And if you go in with a single purpose in mind, you're going to miss the opportunity. And because the chances that person can actually help you with the specific thing that you want are relatively low. But if you open up the aperture and you talk to people just more generically about what type of job you're looking for or what you're looking to accomplish in life, you never know what's going to come from it. those are just true of networking in general. When it comes to networking for a job, all of those will work. The only tip I would layer on is try and find time to do that even if you have a job today, because that is an underappreciated way to find the next great thing that happens to you in your life.
That's right. And with people not commuting to the job, there are some extra hours in the week, in the work week to do.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of catching someone on their, their morning run, right? People are more relaxed. They're less pressed for time. So yeah, that's a great point, Lori.
Mm-hmm. Okay. It's 3:30 our time. Esther, do we have any questions from?
Yes, actually comment/question.
Okay.
So this is more towards Ian. And the comment/question is, great insights, Ian. Essentially, you're underscoring what Freeman addresses in his book, The Lexus and the Olive Tree. As workplaces and cubicles become globalized overnight, it seems like there will be enormous downward pressure on competition. Living in Southern California, we have higher overhead. In the past, salaries would adjust regionally, but in this case, employers can pay 20 to 35 less because they can hire someone in Greenville, South Carolina to do a job that was LA based. What are your thoughts on that?
I think this is a topic that I see people asking a lot about, both in conversations and on places like LinkedIn. And I share that question. I don't know if it's a concern or not. I think employers are probably going to start looking at what is the value of a skill set and pay for that value rather than the market value for that skill set in a specific market. I do think that you will be competing with someone in cheaper markets, but hopefully if your skill set is more valuable than theirs, it won't matter. I also think there's a very real chance that the expensive markets and the inexpensive markets are going to move towards each other as people disperse. But it's a legitimate thing that we'll see what happens over the next few years. It's something that I don't think we have answers to today.
Yeah, Erin?
And I was just going to chime in because this has come up at Amazon, and we've basically just put everything on hold as is, just because we don't know what to do right now. But it's definitely been thrown out there of, hey, if everybody's remote now, should we, just have everybody at the same rate? So it's a tricky one. It's definitely being looked at. We don't have the answers yet, but I do, to pile on to Ian too, it feels as if it's going to be more focused on skill set, and have it that way, which seems, fair if everybody's remote. But again, I think there's more to come in figuring that all out. It's a very complicated question.
Yes. Really new territory again, right? For employers. Esther, is there another question?
That's it for now.
That's it for now. Well, I wanted to ask a question because we're talking post-COVID. And so I believe there will be a lot more remote jobs that are available. So how does one, and we in our Career Center have hired somebody that we have never physically met, who's a great team member. What advice do you give to alumni who are starting a new job remotely, and how do they make that great impression, and how do they develop those relationships with colleagues? They won't be around the water cooler, but how can one be successful in kind of a remote environment from the day one?
I think it's really challenging. How you get the same level of kind of relaxed demeanor and ability to connect with someone at a company, holiday get together versus, over a Zoom call is tough. I think you have to put some structure around casual time, right? So in our weekly team meeting, there's no agenda for 10 minutes in, right? People are just kind of talking about what's going on in their lives and sharing details. And you can do some of that. We've been looking for a team activity that we can do for 6 months, and we have yet to come up with a truly fun and not awkward idea virtually. So I want to start off by acknowledging the challenges there. I would say that some of the things that were important when we were all together become more important. Over communication, making sure that everyone has the right context, not reacting to perceived tone. Those types of things become more important. I think you need to be a little bit more even and dependable than ever before, because you don't have those abilities to make up for it. But I think the good thing going is everybody's in the same boat, By now, even of those who have worked together in the past, we haven't seen each other for 9 months. So I think if you just follow the practices that made you successful in person with a little bit of over communication, you're going to do okay.
Yeah. Erin?
Yes, and I agree. We at Amazon, we call them coffee chats, that you just need to be more proactive, set up a coffee chat with which really has no agenda. So it's like, hey, let's just chat, get to know each other, talk about business a little bit, but it's really for that connection. Also being more active on, we have an internal, it's called Chime, like our instant messaging. So setting up your team instant messaging group, participating in that. And to Ian's point, like my team, we had a cooking activity engagement event this past week. So we all went out and got ingredients and then set up our cameras and cooked together. So things like that, where we usually would not be doing that. And sometimes it is awkward, but you go with it and it's engaging, it's fun. And I think what's more difficult is getting your personality out there. I think it's just a little bit more stiff behind the camera. So just remember to feel free to be yourself, utilize your great personality and engagement, but definitely it's a little bit of work. It's a little bit, you have to be more proactive and in there. But I think, like Ian said, we're all in the same boat. But I think that also, if you're new and haven't met anybody on the team who were together, that gives you the freedom to say, hey, I'm a newbie. I'm going to be setting up these coffee chats because I haven't really hung out with you since COVID hit. So definitely have that freedom to do those types of engagements.
I love that cooking as a group and everybody getting the ingredients and having the kitchen right there. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yes.
We could try that.
We have a question in the queue.
Yeah, good. What's your next question?
Yes. All right. It's actually two came in right now. So what advice do you give to alumni that are non-US residents in the School of Communications and Cinematography fields?
I think it's tough to give advice in a field I'm not totally familiar with, but from what I mean, I do live in LA, so I do have many friends who are in those industries, and work is slow right now, right? Getting scripts approved, getting projects moving forward, things are slowing down. That's why you're not seeing a lot of new content, a lot of new movies. I think that means that work is probably harder to find right now, but it does mean that people have more time on their hands, which does mean that networking can get you further. And I also think that during industries in particular that are suffering like that, it's very easy for people to be apathetic. So you'll probably have not a lot of people out there hustling right now. So I think your ability to get people on the phone to talk to you about ideas or to learn about them or doing an informational interview is actually, you could be at an advantage. And then I assume, if you're international, hopefully your economy's is not quite as impacted by the COVID levels as it is here. But I think that the principles for what to do when it comes to networking job tend to be pretty international.
So we have 3 more questions, okay? They're picking up. Okay, let's see. From your experience during COVID, how you found issues, skill gaps in hiring, training, etc., that could be taught in a course that would prepare people for working remotely or hybrid for working locations? That could be anyone.
Sure. So the question, if I understood it, is just in terms of
skill gaps, any hiring, training that could be taught in a course.
Yes, I mean, there is a lot of great content trainings out there online. LinkedIn has all their training network as well. So 100%. And that's something you can add to your resume. It's going to get you prepared, but also show you've been motivated, preparing yourself in terms of being hired and working remotely. So absolutely. And even look at, Harvard has classes online, take an entrepreneurship class, because that's going to give you lots of different types of skills in terms of, You know, when you start a new role, it almost feels as if you're in a startup, because you need to be proactive, you need to reinvent, you need to, you know, start your own processes and whatnot. So definitely cast the net wide in terms of looking online for courses and certifications as well.
Yeah, there's a renaissance going on right now when it comes to the ability to find this type of content online. I lead partnerships with companies that specialize in this, and they've seen a 300 to 400% growth rate this year because people have the time. People are looking for these opportunities. People are trying to upskill. So anything you can imagine practically has a course around it. I'll give you a few courses, sites to check out. You can look at Coursera, edX, which has 160 universities putting courses online, Skillshare, Skill Success, but really Google's your friend. If you look for a course about how to be more effective working remotely, you will find it. And I think it's just another thing you can do to stand out during the interview process is that you take it seriously, you want that job, and you've invested in being an effective employee. So tell that story.
Right. You've covered some of the networking tips already, but the question is, can you expand on how to network? What shouldn't we do in networking?
I think I've probably covered in my rules, so I'll let Erin chime in.
Well, what came to mind is what Ian said about basically saying, "Hi, I'm Erin. I want a job." I mean, it is one thing to you know, get it out there that you're looking, but have it be organic in terms of the conversation around networking and being open to something that maybe you didn't think that you'd be interested in too. So don't be too narrowly focused. And I'm always one for, you know, take a step back to take a step forward potentially. Also, if somebody says, "Hey, I have this role," and you're like, take it, right? That may lead to something else. So just don't be shy to get in there, especially during these times. My career has gone like in a positive directions when I've raised my hand, when there's something I was like, "Ooh, that doesn't really sound that great," but then it's led to bigger and better things. So definitely don't be shy. Don't kind of narrow yourself into one place. Be open to different roles, different industries, taking a step back to take a step forward.
Okay. Next question. Have you seen opportunities for 60+ workers who want to work part-time? I'm a previous agile specialist and even considering doing C# development, but away from it for 10 years. Is it real to expect there is demand for part-time work like this, and how would you recommend to proceed besides the ideas what you have shared today?
So first of all, I think there's entire marketplaces online about part-time work. One thing that we have seen is project-based work really grow, and there's a lot of websites like Upwork, for example, that truly specialize in you working for yourself, setting your own hours, and you can go in and bid on projects, and they're just looking for people with the skills in a portfolio that they can show, like this is someone who's qualified, and then they will hire you on that project work. So project work is a great time to work part-time, especially with the skills that you mentioned, which are very much in demand. You can also always go on a job sites and just filter for part-time work and set that up as your search criteria and see what's out there. But I would say if you don't find it very obviously with part-time work, look to project work.
Those are all the questions so far. Sorry.
Yeah, and I was just going to pile on in terms of Amazon and part-time work. I think with, you know, diversity and inclusion, with everything going on, they are moving towards being open to part-time work. And about also, you know, moms who stayed at home and now want to get back into the workforce. We have programs now around that, which, you know, 5-10 years ago wasn't as okay. And now it's the ramp back up programs. The Amazon advertising group has like 3 to 4 day work weeks. And they have this, this program where if somebody goes out on maternity leave or paternity leave, then they'll have a pool of these, you know, moms who went out of the workforce and now want back in. And so they can kind of plug and play. So getting a little bit more creative. And I know more and more companies are doing that. So definitely, look into that when you're doing your job search. Like Ian said, just focus it on part-time. I think people are being more and more open to that.
Yes. And I know the case, the Aerospace Corporation in El Segundo, they partnered with Society of Women Engineers, and they were trying to find engineers who stopped work to take care of children. And then they said, hey, we have these opportunities for you. We know you haven't been an engineer for 5 to 10 years, but we have opportunities. So definitely seeing that trend. Thank you so much. Well, I think we're at the 45-minute hour. So I want to give a big USC Trojan thank you to Ian Davidson and Erin McCall, and for sharing their time and their pearls of wisdom. Erin is 3 hours ahead in Connecticut, and she donated her Friday evening to share her pearls of wisdom with us. And Ian as well, he's on baby watch, and the baby didn't come yet, so he was here today. So thank you so much for being a part of our webinar this evening. We look forward to pushing this out to our total alumni population so that they can gain these great pearls of advice and wisdom as we move forward and strategize our job search post COVID-19. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this evening. And as we say at USC, everybody, fight on.
Fight on.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.